ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome back to ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We just want to say thank you for making us your first listener today. Remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review because guess what? We do not hide greatness on this show. So, yeah, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review so everybody and their mama and them can find out what we got going on right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Today's show, is brought to you by Bet Online, and we have a lot on board for today. T, we will talk about whether or not the Phillies are starting to look like the 21 Braves. And also, here comes Deebo. And last but not least, 20 years ago today, another jewel was dropped. We'll talk about all of that in For the Culture. But first, we got to talk about the Braves losing to the Philadelphia Phillies 7-6. T, Max Fried gets off to a rough start, and then it just goes all down here from there.
It really does. And, you know, I'm not one who has ATL sports PTSD, and I'm not one who panics. But I tell you, Jarvis, yesterday, it was just that game one just got me. I watched for a little while, and then I will admit, I went into mother mode. My mom says the same thing for everything. Y'all aren't about to stroke me out. I don't care what it is. Everything strokes are out, right, Jarvis?
Right, exactly.
That's how I felt yesterday. Braves, y'all are not about to stroke me out. Now, of course, Jarvis, I will admit, turned the TV off, but kept peeking at Twitter until I got so many notifications because so many people were kind of like stressing out that it just got to be too much. And listen, I know it's game one and it's just game one, but there are some things that really were cause for concern. Now, I think we all knew there was a chance Max Fried wasn't going to be 100%, right?
Right.
His velocity on all 5 of his pitches was at least 1 mile per hour below what they were in the regular season. So we get that. Mm-hmm. And you can't be mad at the bullpen because they did their job. Jesse Chavez gave up 1 run, and that was it for the Phillies. What concerned me was going back to one of those Achilles heels with the Braves, which is leaving runners in scoring position. When you leave 9 runners on base in just those first 5 innings, I mean, how do you expect to do anything but lose? And how do you expect it to be another downhill battle? And one more thing that really, really made my skin crawl. You said it yesterday that pretty much the MVP of this series, the Braves are going to win if Ronald Acuna Jr. does his thing. Mm-hmm. Ronald Acuna Jr. did what he was supposed to do. It didn't have to be the long ball. He got on base with doubles and singles. Dansby Swanson, I need you not to go down 3 times striking out swinging and then 1 time striking out looking when Acuna Jr. gets on base to score.
T, so I got a thing, right? So I'm not going to refer to him as the D word. His name is James now. His name is James Swanson until he does. Yes, James Swanson. So James Swanson and Austin Riley were a combined 1 for 9 yesterday, T, and they struck out 7 times. That's not like the whole lineup. That's just 2 people. They struck out 7 times yesterday, T. Like, I don't understand. Like, this is Dansby has been. Oh, sorry, Jarvis. Come on, James has been absolutely amazing with 2 strikes in those clutch moments, and he's come up clutch
2 strikes,
throughout
2
this.
out. Yes.
2 strikes, 2 out. That's what we're used to, right? We're used to seeing like, oh yeah, James got this one. He got this one. He gonna do it. He gonna do his absolute thing. But I think that when you come into the plate in those moments, I had a certain level of confidence. But when you talking about striking out 3 straight times, you know what I mean, and just looking just all off. Like, that's why I'm calling you James right now. You won't get the D word until you actually look like the guy that was during the regular season and the guy that's trying to get that check and the guy who is the leader of this clubhouse. And I just don't think that we saw that yesterday, T. And that's what had me kind of upset because I was just like, come on, man. Like, what are you doing? Like, because this is absolutely ridiculous.
It is. It really, really was. And it was frustrating because also, I gave my tip of the hat to Austin Riley. He was the guy that I said, hey, I need you to be the MVP because he was one of the Braves or is one of the Braves that had actually done very, very well career-wise against the Phillies, regardless of what his last few weeks were up and down in the regular season this year, but also had a really nice record against lefties. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give this to you. Like, we got this Ranger Suarez dude. And Jarvis, yes, the Braves had that Ranger Suarez dude because he didn't last any more innings. Yeah, I mean, he didn't last any more innings than Freed. The difference
the bases
is
loaded twice. And the bases loaded.
There it is, William Contreras. But there it is. The two pitchers, all things being equal, actually you could make the argument the Ranger Suarez did worse than Max Fried in terms
of
walks.
See,
there you go. In terms of walks and just literally being as wild and shaky as you expected him to be. The one thing that you did not expect to happen, we talked about this yesterday as well, is the defense that Nick Castellanos showed, for example, when the Braves are the ones that usually show that like lights out defense. And yes, the Phillies have been trending hot, but I don't think any of us really anticipated that the Phillies bats were going to make up for their pitcher and that the Braves bats were not.
And when you think about it, T, like they were playing some old school style baseball, right? Because we talk about Bryce Harper putting a sacrifice butt down. Bryce Harper, they play that dude $500 million dang near, and we sit up here watching this dude lay down a bunt. Oh my goodness, that's absolutely crazy. And I think the Braves only actually laid down one sacrifice bunt, I think, in the entire season as a team. Yes. So yeah, and so when you think about those type of things, like the Phillies were willing to do whatever it took yesterday to get that dub, and that's what they did. That's why I think they do kind of favor the 21 Braves, because you saw them doing each and everything that they want to do. I know it's all about the big boppers and home runs, but the Braves put pressure on guys last season, stealing bases and all that. Yes. But the Phillies aren't necessarily built like that. But being able to do whatever you have to do to be able to move on to the next round, and hopefully that's not the case here, but they do kind of remind me of them a little bit. But I think one of the things though, T, is that kind of calms my nerves a little bit. I know it's kind of hard to believe right now because I'm fumbling through my words. Was that the fact that we talked about this yesterday? Was the fact that they were able to, once they got to the bullpen, they were able to make something happen. They were able to make something shake. And I think that if they're gonna have to do that again tonight in order to be able to get a win and tie this series up. Because I know a lot of people aren't concerned about going down 0-2, headed back to Philly, but the Phillies haven't been to the playoffs in 11 years. Yeah. So yeah, that house is going to be rocking if that series is 0-2 coming back to Philadelphia. And I think they're gonna be looking for a sweep.
Yeah, and I don't like going there 0-2 and the Braves being forced to win 3 straight just to get out of the divisional round. I really don't like that. But I agree with you. When we look at the way it happened yesterday, it was like the polar opposite, right? Because the Braves starting pitcher essentially gave up the 6 runs and then the bullpen gave up 1. Phillies, just the opposite. Pretty much, Ranger Suarez gives up a run.
1-1,
and their bullpen gives up 5. So yes, we stick to our guns when we say that the bullpen could make the difference. All we need to see is for Kyle Wright to do what he's actually been doing pretty much this entire season against the Phillies. He's had a good go with them, like 3 starts. And granted, it's a 2-1 record, but don't let that record just be the thing you sit on, because you talk about the fact that he only allowed 6 runs in 19 innings. That's not bad. That's not bad when you think about only 7 walks as well. And more importantly, 15 strikeouts. So Kyle Wright, please just show up as the 21 game winner that we've seen this season. Just show up as that guy, and everybody else, every man just do his job. And like you said, I think then you get to get a series split to take to Philly.
Another team we'll be having our eye on tonight are the Atlanta Hawks. They'll be taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. There's a 7:00 tip tonight, T. What you gonna be looking for tonight?
Yeah, I'm excited that they're actually going to get to go up against Donovan Mitchell. I think that's a different look. So just like the Hawks will be taking another opportunity to gel their backcourt, this is an opportunity to see what the Cavs new school, new style backcourt and some of their new additions will look like as well. So I like that because, as we know, the Cavaliers were a tough out for the Hawks always last year until we got to the postseason. Thank goodness. But yeah, they were a tough out loss last year. And then also, I don't know about you, but I was excited, Jarvis, when we talked about yesterday how Onyeka Okongwu got his 4th-year option picked up. Jalen Johnson got his 3rd-year option picked up. So I'm hoping that maybe we'll get to see a little bit of double O this this game, and kind of see, say you've been working on that mid-range jumper. Let's see what your offense looks like.
No doubt about it. And then with Bogdanovich, excuse me, looks like he will be a game time decision
I
tonight.
like it.
And so I'm very interested to see what he looks like coming off the bench, because I think that he's going to be the guy that I believe that could be a 6-man of the year type candidate
No
coming
question.
off that pine like that, because we know once Bo gets hot, it can be he could do some serious damage. And I think that if he plays tonight, that's definitely who I'm going to have my eye on.
I
If
like
you
it.
want to have your eye on trying to win some money, you need to go to betonline.net. Oh my God, you need to figure out what the over-run is going to be for the Atlanta Hawks, because I'm telling you, we've been talking about these guys on the show. We can't wait once till the season gets started. Actually, a week from today, October the 19th, they open up at State Farm Arena. So you need to get that information. Go to the betonline.net, because they have all of the podcasts and information that you need, because they are the place to go when it comes to sports wagering information. And last but not least, I think also, the Falcons are coming up on a nice matchup against the San Francisco 49ers, trying to figure out what their over-under is. Go to betonline.net and get all the information you need, and because you can download it on your mobile device. It's very convenient. Go ahead and do that. And then once you do that, because you listen to us as a podcast, why don't you go listen to their podcast as well to try to win some money? Because guess what? Bet Online is where the game starts.
So, Jarvis, I would venture to say that it's time for a reset. I think we have all kind of processed what happened last week with
Yes.
the Falcons and the Bucs, and now it's time to look forward, because they have a formidable opponent in the 49ers that they, of course, are going to host this coming Sunday. Now, the good news is Kyle Pitts got back to practice today, so we're going to take that as encouraging, and maybe Marcus Mariota gets one of his weapons back. We definitely hope so ahead of Sunday's game. But speaking of that, and, of course, we're watching to see how Cordero Patterson is progressing along. Now, the Falcons have their CP, and the 49ers have their version of CP in Deebo Samuel, a guy who is just as much of a hybrid as CP. So when we started talking about him yesterday, we kind of teed it up on Deebo being arguably the biggest challenge that the Falcons may face in terms of the 49ers and their versatility on offense. So I have a thought, but I want to get your thought first on how you think that the Falcons are going to kind of scheme, how Dean Pease is going to game plan to deal with Deebo.
To be honest with you, I think that they're gonna make sure wherever he lines up, they're gonna know where what Deebo Samuel is before every play. I think they're gonna have to be like, a lot of times when quarterbacks come to the line of scrimmage, they're identifying, okay, such and such is the mic, or 54 is the mic, 3 is the mic. I think they're gonna be doing the same thing when it comes to Deebo Samuel. All right, there's Deebo. All right, there we go. Now let's figure out what we're gonna do from here. And I think that's the thing that I think Dean Pease is going to make sure those guys are going to be well prepared, and I think it's a good thing, even though Cordell Patterson is not necessarily at practice right now, and of course he's on IR, but I think that there are some things that Arthur Smith can do from a scout team standpoint to kind of give those guys some different looks and kind of have somebody working in that Deebo Samuel role so they can prepare that defense for what they're about to get themselves into, because Kyle Shanahan is a guy that I have respected for a very long time when it comes to play calling. And I think he's probably one of the best, if not the best, in my eyes when it comes to scheming up guys and scheming guys open, because, those are some of the things that, you have to pay attention to when it comes to these type of games and the player that Deebo Samuel is. And I think that the one thing that I know that Deebo Samuel is going to be a burden. However, the guy that's throwing him the football, and this defense has been turning folks over to you. So I think that there's maybe some opportunity there for the Falcons defense to make some plays and continue to do what they've been doing, right? And turning folks over.
Exactly. And it's funny you said that, because that was the exact place I was going. Like, Falcons, you guys may have an advantage over everyone else because you have a version of Deebo that you've gone against in training camp and you've gone against in practice, regardless of if he's out of practice right now. But you've had like a sneaky scout opportunity that maybe most teams, if not all other teams in the league, just don't have. I agree with you. I think Arthur Smith and Dean Pease are going to put their heads together, and Dave Ragone, and they're going to be like, yeah, we know how to scheme for this. So I'm actually very intrigued to see how they manage through Deebo. And the other thing I like is in looking at the way that Dean Pease uses his secondary. They're almost like another set of linebackers, for lack of a better term, because they will come up and defend wherever they need to. And I also think I like Angry Grady. You can't tell me that Angry Grady is not about to make something happen. So, like you said, that's another way to affect Deebo without affecting Deebo, because if Angry Grady and the rest of his D-line end up, winning in the trenches, or they're able to get home and get after Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm feeling really confident about the Falcons' chances. I promise you, I like Angry Grady. I do. I do.
And then can I add another one to that?
Yes.
Taquan Graham. Oh my God, T. I was sitting there watching film this morning.
And
this dude, I'm talking about just perfect form of how he split the double team. I may drop that video a little bit long, so y'all look out that for at Jarvis D9. I'm gonna drop a little bit later on for you guys, because I think that when you think about just from a technique standpoint, the dude is playing at a very high level, T, and that's something that has to be pointed out, because a lot of people talked a lot of trash about Taquan Graham, and I probably was one of those first persons at that time. But and coming into the spring and everything like that, and looking at this guy now, he's a guy that can be some guy, a tandem that can take over this game, because Tom Brady talked about after the game, he was like, Grady, he said, I had nightmares about Grady Jarrett, and from coming from the GOAT, that means a lot. Impressive. That's a stamp of approval. But Grady Jarrett might make the All-Pro team in the NFL off that comment alone.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But you are right. Right. You are right about that, though. We cannot give Grady the credit without saying that he finally has somebody who allows him to do his thing, because we all know last year, part of the reason that it was an off year for Grady was because there was no help whatsoever. So you're right. We need to give Taquan Graham all the credit in the world for bringing his A game and really, really taking his game to another level in the offseason. And by him taking his game to another level, that allows Grady to really, really be Grady, digging into this Dean Pease defense in this second year under Pease as a DC. Now, here's the interesting part, though. As much as I think we've all been pretty pleased and pleasantly surprised, like you said, and a little bit pleased with what the D-line has done, there's actually another group that Arthur Smith says he feels like has really been that special part, if not the best part of the defense.
So going back to the inside linebackers who are on current roster, Mike Welker, we think, is playing really good football, and the numbers show that, and same with Rashawn. They all have their strengths, and Troy, he played a little more in some of the two stack linebacker packages and thought he handled it well, and then he had a little bit for Nate, and maybe he has to play a little bit more because Mike was out, and we feel good about Quit too. So we feel like that's a strength of our defense.
Yeah, when you think about, that's why they were able to freely get rid of Deion Jones, right?
Yes.
Because when you think about, and Arthur Smith even said it himself when he was being asked about Deion Jones before the season started, he was just like, he's healthy. He's gonna come in. He's gonna play. He's gonna have to earn a spot because he's gonna have to compete because they have a lot of talent. I talked about Michael Walker being my pick for the breakout player, and he's well on his way to that. And Rashaan Evans is a solid veteran, knowing the system and Dean Pease, and he's been solid throughout these first few games of the season. And when you think about the type of athlete that Troy Anderson is, I wasn't impressed. I'll say that in preseason, I wasn't like what I was seeing when it comes to Troy Anderson. But as how the Falcons are spoon feeding him and getting him reps and putting him in certain situations where he can shine, when meaning send him on blitzes, hey, putting him in situations, hey, go get the quarterback, hey, go block this punt. All of those things right there are ways to get your athletic linebackers, guys who can run and hit and are big and fast, get him involved in the game. And I think that, I'm wholeheartedly agree. I was literally just like this. As soon as I heard Arthur Smith saying, I was like, that's the best group. That's the best group from top to bottom on your defense, hands down. So definitely shout out to Coach Smith for speaking that truth up there in Flowery Branch.
But it was so interesting to me because one of the things that we talked about, and don't get me wrong, we're not taking anything away from Rashaan Evans, and we know we were excited about Lorenzo Carter.
Yes.
But real talk, a lot of us were thinking and looking at that secondary and salivating and thinking that was going to be the strength. I can remember us having conversations saying, oh, the secondary is good. You got nothing to worry about over there. Casey Hayward's going to be fine. AJ Terrell finally has somebody who he can actually count on. Jalen Hawkins is coming up big. So we were like excited about what we were seeing in the secondary. But for me, I'm like you. I am super excited that this linebacker core that we thought had potential is actually showing up and showing out in big ways. So yeah, I'm like you, excited to see what they're able to do. And again, takes nothing away from the secondary. They've definitely been solid, but I think our eyes were already on them in the preseason and over in training camp. And even for the defensive line, well, let's just be real. We all thought, I mean, they can't go anywhere but up. So
yeah, no doubt. Yes.
They can't go anywhere but up. So I just really felt like from a linebacker perspective, this was absolutely a place where I can agree. Like you said, I think all of us were like, oh yeah, coach, that's it.
Yes.
And I really do think they're going to make the difference. And like you said, Michael Walker, my goodness, you and I had an opportunity to speak with him early on with the time with the Falcons. And we were like, yeah, he's something special. And then to see him being called out as sort of the vocal leader, that play caller, if you will, on defense. And like you said, we all kind of knew that they were going to move on from Deion Jones, but to actually see it, that to me showed confidence in not just Michael Walker, but his ability to get that linebacker core to where they need to be. So just excited about that. Can't wait to see what they're going to do Sunday. But when we come back, we're going to talk about something that was magical 20 years ago and has stood the test of time as being what? How we get our name for our final segment, because they are all about For the Culture.
Final segment of ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We want to just say thank you for rocking with us throughout the entire show. We really appreciate you guys. We also want to just say thank you guys for putting us up over 4,500 subscribers. We really appreciate you. And if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, Lord, what are you waiting on? Please come and join the party because we're having a lot of fun right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. But this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, culture, and sometimes whatever we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different. We're going to talk about a movie that had just reached 20 years. But first, we got to talk about the breaking news just came down the pipeline. Tyler Masick is having Tommy John surgery, and obviously that is going to put him out for the rest of the postseason and potentially maybe even some into the regular season next year. So no Tyler Masick for this playoff run this year.
Yeah, and it's disappointing. We kind of had a feeling when we heard that he was going to where he's heading to Texas for a procedure. And if it's a small procedure or something that's very minor, shall I say, you'd stay here for that procedure. But when we heard Texas, I think we all kind of knew it was going to be extensive. I don't think we thought Tommy John. We were hoping not Tommy John, but yes, like you said, here it is. But the good news for the Braves is that they have had some real success with their middle relievers, starting with Raisel Iglesias. And we saw it last night. That whole bullpen, I'm calling them Night Shift 2.0. Night Shift 2.0 is really, really doing the darn thing. And I feel like they're in good hands. And another thing that just came through from Brian Snitker's press conference, of course, Snit with his pregame presser just before game 2, is he's playing a little chestnut checkers, Jarvis, because he's saying that he's undecided on his starter for game 3. And we know that Spencer Strider is activated. So we'll, of course, talk to you guys a little bit more about that tomorrow once we know for sure. But yeah, I like it, Snit. Play some chestnut checkers.
No doubt. All we need is Kyle Wright to pitch like a 20-game winner that he is. Yes, come on, Kyle. We need you, bro. And yeah, James, I need you to get your life together. All right. Now, 20 years ago today, there was a very special movie that came out. My girl, Sanaa Lathan, and, Tay Diggs got a lot of fans too. And came out the movie Brown. See how I'm slick hating already?
Did you all did you feel the shade in that?
Tay was in that mud too, But Sanaa, the star of the show, the movie, Brown Sugar came out, and I think that when the metaphors that was used in the movie, and talking about falling in love with hip hop. And I think that when I started going through the article, I was like, man, like this was just a really dope movie. And when you think about some of the things that Tay Diggs' character had to deal with in that particular movie, it feels like some of that stuff is still going on today when they're talking about putting certain rappers out, guys who have themes, commercial versus real rap and all that stuff. And Mos Def being in there, he did a really good job of acting, by the way. And not too hard. He was playing an aspiring rapper. So but yeah, I think it was just so many aspects of this movie that I thought that was just really, really dope. And obviously with having African Americans as lead characters in these movies and to do as well as it did, hey, it was definitely for the culture.
Yeah, and that was one of those times where, and I think we're gonna get back to that, but that was one of the times where you have a Brown Sugar come out and so many other of those romantic films. You got The Best Man in that space as well. And so
Wood came out.
Exactly. Like you really have so many good movies. Love and Basketball, which is probably my favorite. But you had so many good movies come out in that space. But I think Brown Sugar just really hit home for all of us, especially the hip hop heads, right?
Right.
Because we kind of know, we can remember sitting back with your crew and listening to whatever was the hotness, and kind of depending on which era you were brought up in, it might have been a tape, it might have been an album, it might have been a CD, whatever, but you're kind of listening all the way through because you want to hear all of the good stuff. And then you think about, like you said, Mos Def's character and how back then, I mean, mixtapes, that was it. Like you had to have your mixtape in order for you to get that.
You ain't popping if you got that mixtape.
Exactly. You're not. Like everybody's looking like, okay, yeah, great, you got a deal, but what do you do on the mixtape? What's she do on the mixtape?
What they talking about in the streets? What them streets talking about?
Yep, because if they're not talking, we're not listening. So it was just really, like you said, so many things. And even reading the article on Sanaa Lathan talking about the fact that she was very specific and very particular about what her look was going to be as an editor for a hip hop magazine and as a hip hop head. And I'm like, yeah, because that's what you really are. Like you go into a concert, it's like a hoodie, throw on that leather jacket, some kicks, and we're out. And it's just a vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a total vibe. And then just kind of seeing, the entrepreneurship of Tay Diggs' character. And that takes you back to the early days of Russell Simmons and Puffy and all those guys who were starting from the bottom, even Master P from, around my way. So yeah, I'm like, first of all, I can't believe it's been 20 years. But secondly, I'm like, man, I love it. Like you said, they went old school with the note at the end. Will you go with me? Yes or no?
Right. Yes. That is so cool.
Shout out to the Brown Sugar cast, Queen Latifah as well, Boris Kodjoe, Nicole Ari Parker. Like you said, that was a loaded cast that did just a fantastic job with that movie.
No doubt about it. And I just kind of real quick story. Like it kind of brought me back to a time when I was introduced to Goody Mob, because my cousin had to go take a little vacation for a little while. So I had went over to my aunt's house, helping clean out the room and everything. And I was just going through some stuff. I was like, oh, UGK Riding Dirty. Okay. All right. Goody Mob, Soul Food. Oh, that's interesting. Outkast, ATLians. Oh, okay, that's dope. Let me see what these guys talking about. Oh my God, you talking about being introduced to a whole new world, because that was back in the day when they had the interludes on the CDs, and they used to listen to CDs
almost whole
right, almost whole songs and whole acting type of situation. So it's just like those type of movies. That movie, just took me back to a time where it just discovering music and discovering the groundwork of that, the guys that laid down the music in the city of Atlanta. And it was just then just to hear from some guys that from Port Arthur, Texas, you know what I mean? Like it was just like, man, who is these dudes? And this music sounds so basic. Like where have I been losing out on life right here? Thank you to my cousin for sacrificing so I can understand what hip hop is all about down here in the South. So it was some just a really, really, really dope moments. Now, T, also another really dope moment is the fact that hey, we have a local person, who as HBCU grad, T, who Miss Bain, who has started her own ice cream type situation. Like she, it was infused with nitrogen. Because she talked about how it was a situation where she had to figure out a way to freeze the ice cream faster, because she's making it's homemade and she's using her grandfather's recipe. And I think that for her to be able to monetize something like that, she's going to have a passion for it. She's going to take her time and doing it right. And for her to, as a chemist grad from Tuskegee,
Yes.
she was able to, figure out a way to do that and accomplish that. Now she's out here doing her thing. It's called a Cream Lab, by the way, if you guys want to check it out. But that is absolutely dope.
And it's so interesting because I have seen the nitrogen ice cream shop and I have been intrigued by it, but just didn't go in. But now that I know one of our sisters, a queen, has done her thing and she's local, so we want to support her in that. And she's an HBCU grad, just so excited and proud for her and of her. And to think we've got it in our own backyard. And it just reminds me, in all things, Atlanta just really has so much richness in
so many dope people. Yes.
So many. So it doesn't matter whether it's entertainment or whether it's sports or whether it is business, the entrepreneurship piece. This is just really a special place to live. And when you see people like her, you're like, oh my God. And she lives like right around the way. And she went to school right around the way. And she's doing these great things. So now the next time that I see that spot, I'm actually going to go in and support the same way that I promise you all I will get back on track and support the Braves this afternoon. I have recovered. I am encouraged thanks to my co-host talking me off the ledge.
Yes.
And I'm encouraged because you know what? James is going to do his thing. He's going to do his thing. Austin Riley is going to bounce back. And I definitely think that Matt Olson, because we didn't even talk about him, he was pretty much the reason that they even had a shot to be the comeback kids last night. So hopefully we'll see all those guys just kind of bring it together so that the Braves can indeed head to Philly with a 1-1 lead. And hopefully, Jarvis, too, the weather will actually cooperate because it's supposed to kind of pour over near Truist Park this afternoon. So guys, come on back tomorrow. Check us out. We hope to be downloading with you guys about 2 wins. Braves over the Phillies, Hawks over the Cavs. We'll debrief on what we saw last night. We're talking more Falcons, right? Because we're getting closer to game day and anything else sports related in this town, you got it right here. And hey, you don't even have to see us on the small screen anymore on your mobile device or just on your laptop. Check us out on your TV because you can check us out on Amazon Fire or Roku. So thanks again, guys, for stopping by. Be safe, especially because it's supposed to be kind of slick out there today. We will see you tomorrow.
Y'all come back now, you hear?